Well, the media are at it again. You've decided to buy or lease an EV, now want to apply for a new grant of up to £3,750, but they tell you the government has specifically excluded Teslas from the grant. No, they haven't. In fact, quite the opposite, as you'll discover later. But that doesn't make such a dramatic headline, does it? Getting the grant for any EV might just have been made a bit simpler, but understanding which cars qualify and how much you might get, that's still a nightmare. I'm Dave. I'm taking on applying for the new government subsidy that actually just became a grant for an EV in the UK. Let's take a quick look at what's available. Government paper states that you can apply after the 16th of July 2025. Right, it's already up and running. That's good. It's a total grant of 650 million, and grants will be a maximum of either 1,500 or 3,750, and will not only make buying your EV easier and cheaper, but, to quote the government webpage, also allows savings of up to £1,500 per year. Sounding better all the time. Then it will apply to UK and other manufacturers with eligibility dependent on the highest manufacturing sustainability standards, driving growth in our automotive and charging sectors. That's a quote. But what's it mean? Well, most of this actually does make some sense. It's all a bit of a word salad, but they seem to want to pay the highest grants or subsidies. Which is it? It's suddenly changed. To the best manufacturers regarding sustainability of the electricity supply in the manufacturing country. Now, that's a hidden blockbuster. You see, if you want to sell to the biggest EV market in Europe, you'll need to do something about your country's electricity supply. Too dirty, and you get out. Well, that's real political capital. Little old UK dictating to the world, if you want to sell here, here are the terms. That's nice. Now, there are two bands, as I said, 3,750 for those whose electricity is made most sustainably, and £1,500 for others that meet only some of the criteria. This is to tackle the embedded carbon emissions. An EV may produce zero emissions when driving, but we don't want the factories spewing out excess emissions. But that raises a question that will affect Tesla, as the headline says, and others. There's nothing that Tesla can do about the German national grid. It is what it is. But the Giga Berlin factory has run for the last 2 years off self-generated, genuine renewable PV energy. So could they be lumped in with the German grid and possibly get a reduced grant? Or would they be credited with the 100% renewable factory and get the full grant? All of the criteria permitting. Well, I'm sure there is some serious horse trading going on behind the scenes, and I bet other factories are going to be slapping PV panels all over their huge expanses of roofs. In order to determine which category your chosen vehicle falls into, the manufacturer must hold a valid, verified science-based target. Well, these are commitments to reduce their environmental impact in line with the UK's international climate commitments. The amount of the grant is assessed largely by way of the carbon intensity of the electricity grid in the country where the vehicle is assembled and where battery production is located. And the first hints that this is not going to be what we thought suddenly appear. Well, let's give an example. What if the country does not yet meet the minimum criteria? Well, if you read the small print, it's not really a problem, because read on and you discover that the country only has to promise, really serious promise by the way, to reduce those emissions by 42% by 2030. And net zero commitments by 2050, and you can get the grant now in 2025. No commitments, not actual achievements, because nobody yet has achieved 42% by 2030. We're not there yet. So are we going to see a load of fresh promises? But what if the batteries are made in a country with lower standards? A different country? Well, that also is covered because the battery sustainability only controls how much you receive, not whether or not you actually get it. So they have this double approach to whether or not you can get a grant and then how much of a grant you could actually get. Confused? Yeah. It might all be in vain because there is a link to a list of eligible vehicles produced by the Department for Transport. You could just have a look at that and bypass all this. But sadly, it must be too soon because no definitive list seems to exist yet. In one section, there's a draconian list of eligibility for the manufacturers, stating you must send in emails to ZEV, that's the Office for Zero Emission Vehicles, catchy, to request an electric car grant application reference number, and then complete the application form with supporting evidence. They need the manufacturer to tell them the make and model of the EV, plus the battery, the chemistry, the range, the maximum speed, the number of seats, and of course, most important of all, the recommended retail price. But panic not, because once they've done all that work, if it passes and they get a grant, then that vehicle will just be added to the approved list. And any buyers after that, you just quote the model. It's really simple. They will tell manufacturers yes or no, or they need more data from them, or the government needs to do more data. And if it's granted, they'll then tell you how much you got. It's a lot like Christmas, isn't it? For the manufacturer, they never know what they're going to get until they unwrap it. Interesting. Well, a manufacturer might offer two models, for example, a standard and a long-range model. And the batteries might be made in different countries or different factories in different countries. And one might not get a grant at all. Another might get a reduced grant. And that's all based on the country where the battery is going to be made and their electricity grid. But another competitor might have all their models getting the full grant. Oh, it will be confusing, but that list is going to tell you which gets which. The OZEV will review the environmental criteria, determine the level of grant they will qualify for. The maximum you can get is 3,750, minimum 1,500. But that's the starting point. Anything else other than those two, you get a zero. You don't get one. But the manufacturer's doing all this for you and applying to be added to the approved list. So my first advice is just wait a little while until the EV you want to buy appears on that list when that list appears. Now, some of the criteria is really welcome. For example, it applies to cars below £37,000 price cap. Yeah, if you chose an EV as a recommended retail price, even 1 penny above that, you get zero. Then it must be a genuine BEV. Hooray, not a hybrid. It must carry an 8-year battery warranty, and the battery, unusual one, must not deteriorate at an exceptional rate. Can't put in a cheap battery to try and overcome this. Overall warranties on the whole vehicle must be a minimum of 3 years or 60,000 miles. It only applies to new cars. So all those out there that have pre-registered dozens or hundreds, thousands according to our viewers, they won't get a penny. So first big Dave hint, wait a few weeks and see if your chosen vehicle, not just the make, but the specific model and battery pack ends up on the list. Next big hint, wait and see exactly how many manufacturers currently above the £37,000 cap will drop their prices. Dropping a couple of thousand might get them the full grant, so their buyers will benefit tremendously, maybe over £5,000, 2,000 drop and 3,000 grant, and the manufacturer will obviously get a lot more sales. But better news, this grant can be added to other benefits that EVs already hold, like benefits in kind, salary sacrifice, so it makes it even more attractive to get an EV. In addition, it should be noted that the grants and benefits apply per vehicle, not per person, so someone could benefit by buying 2 EVs or multiple EVs over the lifespan of the grant. That lifespan, by the way, is basically until the money runs out, or the government realises it's overlooked something and it's not working correctly. Well, in terms of what it does, who does what, it's not all spelt out directly, but in all likelihood, the dealer or manufacturer will apply the relevant grant level at the point of sale. You just end up buying a much cheaper car than you expected to pay. List of approved vehicles is not even published yet. However, there are already some very big hints as to which would qualify. These are guesses. No prizes for guessing which will be included. This is obviously aimed at the cheaper end of the market, not your 50, 80, £100,000 EVs, so expect the European budget manufacturers like Renault, Stellantis, Ford to feature, and that would include cars like the Citroën EC3, Fiat Grand Panda, Vauxhall Frontera, Fiat 500e. That would be great for the Dacia Spring as well to get the full grant, as that would make a real EV, brand new, cost around £10,000 on the road. Wow. Well, moving up the price bracket, Mini Cooper, VW ID3, Mini Aceman, Renault Megane, Alpine A290, Vauxhall Astra. But we now get some common sense because we make some EVs here, like the Nissan Leaf and the Micra in Sunderland. And we used to make the MG4, should have made the MG5. So expect all those to be included here because they're very British, almost. The really interesting thing here is the level of the grant. For example, the Citroën EC3 is built on the same platform as the smart car range. But if the grant is dependent on the home country electricity sustainability, what happens if the smart car is made in a different country? Well, some of the European and many of the EU-China joint efforts are built in countries like Slovakia and Poland. Some of them might not qualify at all. VW could find that some of their models do not qualify, yet a VW in a different name, a Seat built in Spain, might qualify for the full grant. That's based on the emissions from the electricity of Spain, not the car. Well, it's all going to take some time to shake down, but as the list grows, we'll find the winners and losers. Is this £37,000 set specifically to exclude Tesla? Absolutely not. Because just today, Tesla's announced a budget model will go into full production in the second half of 2025. Budget will be under 37. This is much more of a media tool story than a fact, because why didn't they say there are no BMWs or Mercedes under 40,000 either? Not a headline. But it'll be interesting to see what the Chinese do. Take, again, Tesla, for example. The Model 3 for the UK is made in China, priced at 39k. So expect to see this drop a few thousand. This too good an opportunity to miss. But if they do the same with the Model Y, then that's made in Germany, and that factory runs on 100% genuine renewable electricity. So maybe the Y gets the grant while the 3 gets a reduced grant or never gets anything. Or will they start using specific batteries in specific models to deliberately qualify not only for the grant but for the maximum grant? Well, the overall impact is very mixed. Many manufacturers do not have EVs below 37,000, so expect a flurry of new models, budget versions, which will be under 37,000. For the likes of BMW, Mercedes, they'll probably not care to a large extent. Below 37,000 is not where they want to be selling, not where their money is made. Never has been. Others might start moving factories around because this grant is likely to be here for a few years. Moving to a different country with a more sustainable grid might get them a bigger grant and make a lot of sense. Well, the Chinese here have the most to gain. They don't need the grant in any way whatsoever. Their EVs are already ridiculously cheap without. The BYD Dolphin Surf is £18,500, no grant, with a tariff. The Citroën EC3, with a grant, is about £19,000. That's the full grant. I know which is the better EV. But for the Chinese, it would be a badge of honour, a certificate of quality. If the UK gives them grants, they will leap on them. Well, the underlying message, once again, is that EVs will succeed, and whatever it takes to get that transition speeded up will be done. Even Germany, they cancelled all their grants, is now looking to reintroduce them. We've just witnessed the almost total collapse in June of ICE new car sales in China and several other countries, and many more will follow. Now, for all of you who don't want an EV right now, I've got another message. Don't buy one right now, but get used to the idea of having to buy one day. But this is the important thing you need to realise. Treat EVs like computers or smartphones. You may not like what you see right now. It may not suit you, but I guarantee they will look very different in 5 and 10 years' time. Once they all do over 500 miles on a single charge and top up in 5 minutes, once the batteries last longer than the life of the car and cannot catch fire, and once the price drops below an equivalent ICE car and is even cheaper with a grant, what excuses are you going to be able to find then for not converting to EV? You can carry on with your outdated pollution on wheels for now, but realise that one day soon you'll be as welcome as a smoker on an aeroplane. I'm Dave. Want to support the channel, get access to behind the scenes content, that includes channel meetups, join as a member today. Details in the description down below.